How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, this is going to be a good dialogue. I'm going to go over 7 quick tips that will help correctional staff interact with inmates. It's not an all-inclusive list. Trust me, after years of doing dialogue on Tier Talk, I mean, this is a topic that could just go on forever. But I wanted to provide some quick tips that will help us just deal with those routine or spontaneous interactions that we deal with every day with the inmate population. Before we get into the show, just want to go over our sponsors. First sponsor is American Military University. If you guys are looking to get a degree, seek higher education, please check out American Military University. It's a great school, very supportive of what we do in corrections, and also very supportive of what we do here on Tier Talk. So again, bring experience back into the classroom. That's the key. We also have my book, Inmate Manipulation Decoded, is now on the market. It is available on Amazon. Link to that is in the description. That book sells very well. Very happy with that book. It's used in training all across the country. We also have Lessons Learned While Working in a Prison, My Journey from Officer to Administration. That book's starting to make its way as well. That book is just got tons of tips from not just myself, but other people in the profession that will help guide you on your way to a successful career in corrections. We also have these inmate manipulation posters. They are available. You have to email my friend Sandy Hassan. I'll give you her email shortly because it's the same email that we are using for our leadership training seminar. Now, this is part 1. It is a 5-part series. This is basically, it's a 2-hour and 13-minute webinar on the positional part of leadership, the good, the bad. It's a great discussion. Definitely something that if you guys looking for some training for your leadership staff, definitely something you want to hop on and get. And again, it's $75 a person. And that email that you see here can also be used for the posters if you're interested in getting the posters. So it's Tier Talk On Demand webinars now available. Please email nassahs22@gmail.com for more information. And since they're on-demand webinars, it's whatever works best for your schedule. So that's great. So just sign up, tell me when you need it, and I will send you the link. But you got to go through that email, and that training's doing pretty well. Good. And got 4 more parts left to put that and complete that part, send that out, and then we're going to start working on the rookies. But that first part series could even just stand alone because it relates to positional leadership. So let's get real quick to the 7 tips that will help correctional staff interact with inmates. I wrote these tips down, so I'm going to go ahead and read what I wrote and then maybe add a little bit. But these are quick tips I would think will help you in your career when it comes to dealing with inmates. The first tip is expectations. The professional working relationship between inmates and staff is centered around expectations. As I became more senior and discretion was developed, it has been my experience that even though I see the rules as a pillar that guides me through each inmate interaction, my control is expressed through expectations. Therefore, rules are enforced through expectations that define the working relationship. If ever I find myself expressing the rules in order to gain compliance, it's because there's a failure from the inmate to follow what has been, to some extent, contractually agreed upon. And again, that's pretty much giving them the handbook, signing it off, and they know the rules. I figure for me, I've always led by expectations. This is what I expect from you. This is what you should expect from me. And that pretty much navigates my interactions with the inmate population. If there's ever a failure where that inmate does not meet the expectations, then I, as a last resort, can lean on my authority and my position. That's a great tool to have, but you don't want to overuse it because then it gets minimized. So again, great tool to have, but try expectations first. And then worst comes to worst, when you get to that point where they're just not meeting those expectations, then you play your position, which will automatically, hopefully, remind them of their position. But again, it's a tool of authority. But if you walk around using that tool all day, eventually the inmates just stop taking you seriously. And it's the truth. Play the position when you have to, because at the end, people The inmates know what your position is. You don't have to constantly remind them of that. And if you're doing that, then you got to look back at how you lead that unit or lead that interaction. But having said that, there could be times when you're going to have to go to those rules. And when you do, then you are going to go full force in your authority within that position. But again, that was for me. I led through expectations. Second one, saying no. As a rookie, the first thing the inmates tested me on was in my ability to say no and mean it. At first, leaning on the rules gave me a chance to practice the art of saying no. But as time progressed, I learned to look inwards and build my confidence through my evaluated experiences. Remember, saying no and meaning it is an art. There is a finesse to it that allows for the messenger to go unchallenged. And if inward confidence is expressed, strength of inward justification matters. The no, if needed, becomes permanent. So again, no is the first thing I was tested on. So again, when you first start, yeah, you are going to enforce the rules. That's kind of a little bit sort of against what I said at the beginning. But remember, at the very beginning, I said until you get that discretion. And then you kind of lead in a different way. You lead by, building on each experience and then making decisions based on those past experiences. Having said that, at first, you're building your confidence through your nose as a rookie, 100%, because it's black and white. The rules say this, it's an easy no to give. And if you have problems giving no's when the situations are easy, then my concern is going to be how you're going to deliver the no's when they're trying to manipulate it. And again, eventually you'll earn discretion, as I said, and you lead more towards the expectation side. But at first, yeah, you're leaning on the rules, and those no's do build confidence, because that's probably one of the hardest things you're going to have to do in the job is to deliver those no's. But with that said, you have to know that the no, or the inmates have to know, and you have to know the no is coming from you. You're not pushing that no off on somebody else. Like, oh, the supervisor said no, so I'm sorry, you can't do it today. No, the no is from you. First, you believe it, and then the inmates will believe it. But yeah, the first thing you'll be tested on is your ability to say no. All right, so the next thing, I have it as the end game. If time permits, never go into an interaction with an inmate unprepared. Yes, there'll be times throughout the day when spontaneous inmate interactions will occur during your normal routine. But even with that in mind, you are the one in the driver's seat. You are the one setting the direction. If you go in unprepared, if you allow the inmate to steer the course of the dialogue, you may end up on a road you don't want or need to be on. Set the course and reverse engineer with that end game or course in mind. I do that all the time. If I know I have to interact with an inmate, especially if it's prepared, and I know I'm going in to deal with this inmate, I always have a game plan, and I allow that game plan to direct me into where that dialogue is going to go. I've even made it known to the inmate where the dialogue is going to go. I'm not negotiating. If I have an inmate that could be manipulating something, like I'm going to hunger strike because you're not giving me this. I know I'm going to have to see that inmate, but I'll let it be known that, okay, listen, there's no negotiation here. I'm here to see you because you got my attention, but you don't have control here. You're not getting this. So at the end of the day, what would you like to discuss? Because sometimes they're going to do things that's going to warrant your attention. And they may think, well, I got them coming. I'm in some control. So you have to nip that right at the get-go and let them know this is where the dialogue is going, and never allow them to take you off that course. So I think it's always great to always understand where it is that you want to head. Now, granted, you could be in a dialogue and there could be a sudden shift. That's okay. Take a breather, step back, refocus, go back, but never go in to a dialogue without a end game in mind, because that's going to help filter where that dialogue is going. If you don't have an end game, they're driving. They will drive you anywhere if you don't have an end game and decide on what that destination is going to be. Small talk. For me, I was never a big fan of small talking with an inmate. I felt that too much small talk lacked purpose and actually served more to benefit the inmate than staff. Through what I have seen and witnessed, staff that engage in constant small talk find themselves on the receiving end of trivial yet probing personal questions. Some staff will say it is in their effort to build rapport. I find that questionable at best. Overall, be wary of small talk. Small talk can put staff in a position where they give more than they receive. I think that's pretty simple. I've done dialogues on that before, but small talking is just a lot of little information that's gathered over the course of time no longer becomes small talk. So again, and if you're on the other end of answering a lot of those questions, that's not small talking. That's an interrogation done by the inmate, just at a very small and subtle level. And also, don't forget, it's also very time consuming. If you're walking around small talking with everyone, what are you actually doing? I know people say, well, I'm getting rapport, I'm getting to know the population. Yeah, I'm not saying you're not going to engage in some level of talk, but just be wary of small talk. Be wary of how much information you're giving out. I've truly have seen in my time that I find that the inmates seem to benefit more from casual small talk than we do, because the most smallest of personal information about us, it matters. And when you're on the other end of just answering questions, no matter how trivial or small, it's you. You're answering questions about you. The person asking questions is the one that's in control of the dialogue. Let's get the next one. Body language. Body language. All right. Staff should always be wary of how comfortable they feel around the inmate population. Feelings of comfort will be expressed consciously and unconsciously through the staff member's body language. Sorry, read that wrong. Feelings of comfort will be expressed consciously and unconsciously through the staff member's body language. Like hands in the pocket, feet on desk, not maintaining proper reactionary distance, fist bumping, shaking hands, etc. These signs of comfort will then become visible to the inmate population. No matter how routine the interaction, staff should never find themselves falling into complacency. Guys, you know how you feel. You know it. But if you got to check it, look where your body is. Look where your hands are. Look how close you are to the inmate. Your body language says a lot. So granted, if you feel comfortable talking to that inmate, even if you think that feeling of comfort is only in your head, it's expressed in your body language and the inmates see it. We as staff also see it. So again, we could catch it, but you're the best one to catch it first. Don't allow that feeling of comfort to keep living inside you, because eventually that's going to express itself through your body, slowly but surely, until one day you sitting in your office with your feet on your desk with an inmate right behind you and you're just chatting, and that inmate standing right over you, totally in a dominant position. So just be wary, guys. Again, body language matters, but it's also the mindset. Don't have that complacent mindset. I know we deal with these routine interactions every day, but at any moment, something can happen. And that brings us to this next one. Expect resistance. Never fall into a safety net expecting that inmate compliance is the norm or guaranteed. Early in my career, my supervisor told me to always expect resistance from an inmate, even for the trivial and the routine. Be advised, this is not an effort to prepare staff to be aggressive as they navigate themselves through each inmate interaction, but rather serve as a reminder to just be prepared. Coach John Wooden said it best: confidence comes from being prepared. Guys, how many times have you gone through a normal routine that is something trivial and all of a sudden the inmate starts flipping out? That's happened to me multiple times. And, you have to go into the expectation, no matter how trivial it is or how routine it is, something can always go wrong, because the last thing you want is to be caught by surprise and not be ready when all of a sudden, a normal routine becomes explosive. And again, that also goes back to the body language part. I talk to Joe all day. Joe's not an issue. And next thing you know, Joe had a bad day at home or something. Maybe someone called in, sent something negative, and the last thing he wants is to hear from you. And because maybe you're a reminder of where he's at, and Joe just jumps you. So again, even within the normal routine, always expect resistance. It's not guaranteed. And that goes also back from your position of authority. If you're constantly yelling who you are and I'm a CEO or whatever it is, and that gives me the right to control you, it doesn't have the effect if you're doing it all the time. It's best that you employ it when it needs to be employed so you don't minimize the power behind that position of authority that you're given. And the last one I got for now is be specific. Never allow an inmate to talk in circles or in constant generalities. Force them to be specific. If and when you have a concern, keep the dialogue on point by asking them who, what, where, and when. Each time the inmate tries to move around any question staff is asking, staff must regain control by circling the dialogue back to those 4 specifics: who, what, where, and when. Holding an inmate to specifics will keep the dialogue short, be less ambiguous, and most importantly, give staff more control. Ain't that the key? How many times will inmates just talk in generalities and just keep you there for that long duration of time? And it's like, my man, stop. You haven't mentioned who, you haven't mentioned what, you didn't tell me when or where, and they expect us to act on these generalities. No. Be specific. You said this happened. When did it happen? Who did it? Where did it happen? You got to hold them to specifics, because at the end of the day, they will literally go all day on generalities, and that will wind up causing the person looking into the concern running in circles and lost. And if you allow them to keep talking in generalities without holding them to specifics, it also becomes very time consuming. Don't allow them to talk in circles like that. The moment they start to throw out generalities, hold on, stop. What time last night? Who did it? Because if you're not giving me specific information, there's nothing for me to go on, and I'm not going to do any actions based on generalities. So again, those are 7 quick tips. Hope you guys enjoyed it. A little on the fly, if you will. As always, guys, the show is Tear Up. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify every time I post a video. Stay safe.